The night enveloped the surroundings in its darkness, with only pale moonlight penetrating through the dense foliage of the trees. I drove my truck along the dark, winding roads, surrounded by endless forests. The tranquility of the night was interrupted only by the roar of the engine and the sound of the wheels on the asphalt. The path seemed endless, and fatigue began to overtake my thoughts. But then, suddenly, I noticed the silhouette of a person in a cloak standing on the roadside. My first thought was to ignore it, but there was something strange about this figure. It stood there, motionless like a statue, not reacting to my truck. Only a moment passed before I dared to glance in the rearview mirror to make sure it wasn't my imagination. But to my horror, the figure had disappeared. A sense of something unusual lingered in the air, but I decided not to pay attention to it and continued on my way. But my uncertainty was deceptive. Through the noise of the engine, rustling leaves, and the pattering of raindrops on the truck, cries could be heard. They were muffled, barely audible against the backdrop of nature's sounds, but they sounded human. My pulse quickened, and my eyes began to scan the surrounding forest. Without giving myself time to think, I accelerated. But the faster I drove, the closer these cries seemed. They became clearer, as if approaching, as if enveloping me in their ominous embrace. Suddenly, something struck the rear of my truck with a heavy thud. My gaze darted to the rearview mirror, and I saw a silhouette flickering among the trees, barely discernible in the darkness. Panic seized me, and I began to drive as fast as I could. My heart pounded so hard that I could barely hear my own thoughts. But when the first rays of dawn broke through the foliage, suddenly all the cries ceased. Emptiness replaced the chaos, and I stopped the truck, trembling with tension. Only when the sun had fully risen could I muster the courage to look in the rearview mirror. Nothing was visible except the usual, quiet trees. However, fear still lingered deep in my soul, reminding me of that night when the darkness of the forest swallowed me whole, leaving only flickering traces in my memory.